For centuries, when people thought about living a truly spiritual life, a really devout life, the picture that usually came to mind was, well, withdrawal.
Right, monasteries, hermitages,
Yeah.
basically leaving the everyday world behind.
Exactly. Leaving the hustle and bustle to find a deeper connection. But what if that wasn't the only way? What if you could actually find profound spiritual depth, real devotion, right where you are?
You mean like in the middle of a busy, ordinary life without giving everything up?
Precisely, without abandoning your daily responsibilities. And that's the revolutionary idea we're diving into today. We're looking at an introduction to the Devout Life by St. Francis de Sales. And this isn't just some dusty old text.
No, not at all. Published way back in 1608, but people immediately saw its power.
Yeah, the translator John K. Ryan called it a masterpiece of mystical and devotional literature, which is quite something.
It really is. And he also said it's one of those rare productions of human genius.
Ugh.
It's kept its relevance for, what, over 400 years now.
Inc-
And that lasting relevance, that's really our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We want to unpack St. Francis de Sales's groundbreaking idea. It's gentle, but profound.
Which is?
That everyone can live a devout life. Doesn't matter what your job is, your family situation, your daily commitments. Everyone.
Okay.
So we'll explore his very practical advice on things like virtue, real devotion, humility, loving God, all without checking out of the world.
And you'll see, I think, just how much his wisdom speaks to your life today, even with how fast-paced and, frankly, demanding things are.
Absolutely.
So maybe let's step back for a second, put this in context. 17th century, right?
Right.
And the common thinking back then, if you really wanted to be devoted to God, well, you had to separate yourself. That was pretty much the standard view.
It really was. You joined a religious order, maybe became a hermit. The spiritual path often seemed completely opposed to ordinary life.
Like you couldn't be in the world and truly spiritual.
Yeah, it was almost presented as a choice. The world or God.
Okay, so that's the backdrop.
And that's exactly where St. Francis de Sales he breaks the mold. He was the Bishop of Geneva, and he was getting all these letters.
Who?
From ordinary people. Merchants, wives, people at court, parents, folks living normal lives but wanting to grow spiritually.
Yeah.
But crucially, they couldn't just drop everything and enter a monastery.
Right, they had responsibilities.
Lives. Exactly.
Ah.
So he took all the advice he'd been giving them personally, gathered it up, and structured it into this book. And he addresses it to this fictional person, Philothea.
Philothea.
Yeah, it means lover of God, which is significant, right? It underlines his whole point. This book was specifically for, and I'm quoting him here, those who live in town, within families, or at court, and by their state of life, are obliged to live an ordinary life as to outward appearances.
Wow. So directly aimed at everyday people.
Directly. He was speaking to you, the person navigating an ordinary existence.
And he didn't just say it. He had these amazing analogies to make the point, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, beautiful ones. He said things like, just as springs of fresh water may be found in the depths of the sea,
Okay.
and the firefly passes through flames without burning its wings. So just like that.
A strong soul can.
Exactly. A strong, resolute soul can live in the world without being infected by any of its moods, find sweet springs of piety amid its salty waters, and fly through the flames of earthly lusts without burning the wings of his holy desires for the devout life.
That's such a powerful image, being in the world fully engaged, but not, consumed by the bad stuff.
Precisely. An inner resilience. A spiritual tour that lets you navigate it all.
And you can see immediately how that connects today.
Totally. That core idea makes his work not just timeless, but incredibly practical for your modern life. Think about it.
Yeah.
Whether you're dealing with a high-pressure job, raising kids, trying to be creative, or just drowning in social media noise, St. Francis offers a way to find deep spiritual meaning within all that.
A way that works with your life, not against it.
Right. It's not about adding some impossible spiritual task to your already crazy schedule.
Okay, but that raises a key question then. If devotion isn't just about outward actions or leaving the world, what did he actually mean by true devotion?
That's a really important distinction to make.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get caught up in the externals.
Yeah, when I hear devotion, I immediately think of, fasting a lot, or reciting tons of prayers, or maybe giving away lots of money, visible things.
St. Francis saw that too. He observed people doing all those things, all the outward performances, but inside, maybe not much genuine devotion at all. He looked deeper.
So what was his definition?
He cuts right to the heart of it. It's simple, but really transformative. He writes, genuine living devotion, Philothea, presupposes love of God, and hence it is simply true love of God.
Okay, so it starts with love.
Yes, but a specific kind. He uses the term charity, not just human kindness, but divinely inspired love. A love that comes into the soul through grace as a gift.
A give.
Yeah, and this gift then makes you yearn for God, want to worship him, and it naturally spills over into compassion for everyone, for all creatures. So for him, devotion flows directly out of this core divine love.
Right, okay. And he had another analogy for that relationship, didn't he? Something about fire.
He did. Another brilliant one, he says, charity and devotion differ no more from one another than does flame from the fire. Charity is spiritual fire.
And when it bursts into flames, it is called devotion. I remember that one. It's so vivid.
Isn't it? It suggests devotion isn't some separate thing you add on. It's the active, visible expression of that deep love, the part you can feel and see in your life.
So charity is the fire, devotion is the flame. Got it.
Exactly. Devotion is what makes that love prompt, active, and diligent. It's the energy, the fervor.
So it moves you beyond just the basics, like not just following the commandments.
Right. It pushes you to also embrace God's heavenly counsels and inspirations, those higher calls, those little nudges to do more, to love more deeply, to go the extra mile.
So it's an active, passionate love that infuses everything.
Yes. It makes your ordinary life anything but ordinary. It gives every action meaning, purpose.
Okay, that makes sense conceptually, but the big question is, how do you actually do that? How do you live it out? Especially when life is so distracting.
Ah, the practical challenge. Yes. Defining it is one thing, living it is another. And this is where St. Francis is just so helpful. He gives concrete, actionable steps.
He does? Like what?
He lays out meditations, prayers, exercises for Philothea and for us. They're surprisingly direct.
Okay, give us an example. Where does he start?
Well, interestingly, his most important of all words of advice, right near the beginning, is very human, very practical.
Which is?
Look for a good man to guide and lead you. He's talking about finding a spiritual director, a mentor.
Ah, okay. Someone to help you navigate.
Exactly. He calls this person a faithful friend and a strong defense. Someone you trust completely, like an angel who comes down from heaven.
Wow, high praise.
It is. He says you should have a daughter's respect for her father and a son's confidence in his mother towards this guide. But it's a unique kind of friendship.
How so?
He stresses it must be strong and sweet, completely holy, completely sacred, completely divine, completely spiritual. It's about having a wise companion who really gets you, understands your struggles, and can offer objective insight.
You know, the idea of a spiritual director might sound a bit old-fashioned or formal to some people today.
Maybe, but think of it as the value of having a trusted, wise mentor for your inner life, someone to bounce things off of, who knows the path. It combats that feeling of isolation you mentioned.
That makes a lot of sense. Trying to figure this stuff out alone is tough.
Okay, so finding guidance is key. What's another foundational step?
Another critical one is meditation. But maybe not how we often think of it today, like just emptying the mind.
How does he see it?
For St. Francis, meditation is more like deep pondering, reflecting on something specific to create the right inner atmosphere for prayer.
Can you give an example? Sure. He suggests reflecting deeply on the fact that God created you from nothing, just purely out of goodness and love.
Okay.
And the goal isn't just intellectual understanding. It's meant to lead you to feel profound humility, to make your heart spontaneously say, as he puts it, Lord, before you are, I am truly nothing. How were you mindful of me so as to create me?
Ah, so it's preparation. It sets the stage.
Exactly. It creates that fertile ground of humility and gratitude, making you ready to pray, to receive, to respond. It's about seeing where you fit in the big picture.
That's a beautiful way to approach prayer. But what about when we mess up? Because let's be real, a devout life isn't a perfect life, right? We all stumble.
Absolutely.
Right.
And he has some incredibly freeing advice about dealing with past mistakes. Really quite psychologically insightful.
Like what? How do we handle failures?
He advises making a full accounting of your past errors, maybe to God, maybe to that spiritual guide, through sincere repentance, but doing it with humble and confident mind, trusting God's goodness. And this is crucial, letting go of the shame.
Letting go of the shame, that's hard.
It is, but listen to this analogy he uses. It's striking. The scorpion that bites you is poisonous at the moment it bites, but when reduced to oil, it is an effective remedy against its own sting.
Okay. So the poison becomes the cure.
In a way, yes, he continues. Sin is shameful only when we commit it. When it has been converted by confession and repentance, It becomes honorable and salutary.
Wow. So the mistake, once dealt with, isn't just erased. It can actually become beneficial.
Yes, it's like the relief you feel when you finally tell your doctor exactly what's wrong. Confronting it, learning from it, and then truly letting it go allows grace to transform it. It becomes a source of humility and strength, not a constant weight.
Okay, that's powerful. Now, you mentioned earlier this idea of connecting it all to our fast-paced lives. What's this sort of capstone, the thing that ties it all together for daily living?
Right. The ultimate goal, you could say, the real heart of his practical approach, is cultivating this deep inward prayer. And that happens through developing a constant, uh, lively awareness of God's presence in every single moment.
Every moment, not just set aside prayer time.
Not just then. It's about making your whole life, every interaction, every task, a kind of living prayer.
Okay, that sounds ideal, but how? How do you cultivate constant awareness when your phone is buzzing and emails are piling up?
Well, this is where it gets really foundational and maybe the most relevant part for us today. The first step, he says, is getting a lively, attentive realization of God's absolute presence. Recognizing that God is literally in all things and all places.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. He uses that simple analogy. Just as wherever birds fly, they always encounter the air, so also wherever we go or wherever we are, we find God present. It's like the spiritual air we breathe.
Huh.
Unavoidable, constant.
Okay, so God is everywhere externally.
But he takes it further, more intimate. He says God is present in a most particular manner in your heart. He is there as the heart of your heart and the spirit of your spirit.
Inside us.
Deep inside. It's a profound, personal indwelling. Now, obviously, we don't see God with our eyes. So our work, our devotion, our continual recollection is about bringing that reality home to ourselves, making it conscious.
Building it conscious.
He uses this parable about blind men. They don't see a prince standing among them, so they forget he's there. They don't show respect.
Mm-hmm.
We can be like that, too. We can forget God's intimate presence within us unless we actively, constantly bring it to mind. Cherish it.
So it's less about constantly thinking about God in an intellectual way and more cultivating an awareness of a presence that's already there.
Exactly. It's an awareness.
Yeah.
And his practical advice is simple. Recall as often as possible during the course of the day that you are in God's presence.
As often as possible, does that mean stopping everything?
Not necessarily long, formal prayers. He means frequent, brief moments of remembering. Pausing, he says, consider what God does and what you are doing. You'll see his eyes turn toward you and constantly fixed on you with incomparable love.
Just pausing to remember that loving gaze.
Yes, even for a breath. Imagine how recognizing that constant loving presence changes how you approach your work, your conversations, even washing the dishes. It shifts your perspective.
Okay, I can see that.
And this leads to maybe his most powerful teaching for dealing with modern chaos, finding mental solitude amidst the noise.
Mental solitude, even when surrounded by people?
Yes. He uses the analogy of birds having nests and stags having thickets, places to retreat. We need that inner refuge too. He encourages you, retire at various times into the solitude of your own heart, even while outwardly engaged in discussions or transactions with others.
You mean like creating an internal quiet space while you're still doing things externally?
Precisely. And here's the really liberating part, the reassurance for anyone feeling overwhelmed. This mental solitude cannot be violated by the many people who surround you, since they're not standing around your heart, but only around your body. Your heart remains alone in the presence of God.
Wow. So even in a packed meeting or a noisy commute?
Your heart can be this inviolable sanctuary, a place of peace and connection right there in the middle of everything.
So let's try to bring this all together then. This journey through an introduction to the devout life. It's really quite something, isn't it?
It truly is.
St. Francis de Sales, with this gentle but powerful wisdom, he basically democratized devotion. That seems to be the core.
Absolutely. He broke down that old idea that holiness was only for select few in monasteries.
Right. He showed that it can flourish, that it's meant to flourish in ordinary life for people in town, within families, or at court, basically, people like you living your life today.
And that connects right back to your experience, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What he teaches is that true devotion doesn't pull you away from your life or add another burden.
Instead,
It harmonizes with it.
Yeah.
It elevates every job, every lifestyle. It enriches your engagement with the world, your daily tasks, your interactions. They become ways to connect more deeply, find purpose, grow spiritually.
not distractions from spirituality, but avenues for it.
Exactly. Finding the sacred right there in the ordinary, sometimes messy reality of life.
So as we wrap up, what's the thought for you, the listener, to take away from this?
Well, Perhaps it's this. If St. Francis is right, if your heart can remain alone with God, even when you're surrounded by chaos,
If that inner solitude is truly possible amidst the busiest interactions.
how might cultivating that profound inner space, that awareness, fundamentally change things for you? Your sense of peace,
Hmm.
your sense of purpose, your connection, no matter how demanding or fast-paced your life gets.